Hello, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Hope you're having a great week so far. It's only Tuesday, Lon, right? I hope you had a great weekend. Better still, I hope you had a good little break, right? We just had our fall break. Fall. It's fall. I looked outside, it's fall. Um, Welcome. I want to make sure that, as per usual, you can see and hear me all right. So do me a favor and drop a quick note in the comments there, as always, and let me know that I'm coming through okay. I also want to give you a heads up, as it says in the comments section there. I'm actually going to try some new tech today. I've never tried it before. Now, normally, when you try new tech for a live stream or for a webinar or something like that, test it first. All right. Make sure that it's working properly. Don't do what I'm about to do. Don't try it in a live environment. Okay. Test it first. I should have tested it before I did this, but I just decided last night to do it and I got a little busy. I couldn't test it with anyone. So, yeah, things kind of got out of hand. Jaime, looks like you can hear me just fine. Fantastic. So, to what we're going to do today, is we get to start playing with other forms of economic theory, right? We have spent the last, month and a half? Yeah, month and a half, building up to capitalism. And last week, we finally put the finishing touches on capitalism. We figured out where, first of all, we defined things like profit motive and private capital, and we defined free market and laissez-faire and the invisible hand. We defined these things, and we kind of learned where these ideas started. They didn't just come out of the blue. There were certain economic conditions in place that kind of brought these ideas to the forefront. And so we discovered capitalism. And just so you know, everyone, I just want to go on the record, who has two thumbs and is a fan of capitalism? This guy, okay? I like it. It works really well for me. And let's face it, if a lead singer of a renowned punk band can be a fan of capitalism, that's saying something, right? I like capitalism, works great for me, great. Here's the thing though, just because I like something, morning Timothy, morning Aaron, fantastic, getting folks on board. Just because I like something doesn't mean that it is without flaws. Remember, this course, among other things, is about critical thinking, which is challenging our assumptions about things that we hold dear. Capitalism has problems, folks. It has serious problems. And you can't just say, oh, well, it's the American system and the American system is sacrosanct and covered and imbued with all dogma and axiom imaginable by the human imagination. You've got to say, listen, it's just a system and the system has flaws like any other system. Morning, Joseph. So we're going to talk about some of these flaws. And in fact, the person who's going to really introduce them to us is Karl Marx. Now, I want to go on record and say, yes, I understand that if you grew up in the American educational system, I know a lot of us have not. A lot of us are from different educational systems, so I can't speak to those intelligently. But if you grew up in the American educational system, you were more or less required by law to hate Karl Marx, hate communism, hate all the principles upon which, communism was founded. you weren't invited to think critically about it. You weren't invited to think about it and juxtapose it with capitalism and look at the pros and cons of each. You were just told, man, Cold War. Hey, Jason, great to have you. Cold War, we beat the communists. It's all bad. That's totalitarian, which it is to a certain degree, right? And, you know, communism is awful. Capitalism always wins. Well, here's the thing. Actually, I sort of have to agree when it comes to a communist government. When it comes to a communist form of government, most of the communist governments that have existed on the earth have been pretty disastrous. Okay? Let's just say it. They've been pretty disastrous. All right. But that doesn't mean that the economic principles of communism and socialism are without merit. Okay? And so today we're going to have Karl Marx kind of talk us through some of his main gripes with capitalism and the modern system. And personally, and we're going to survey this at the end, I have a feeling that a lot of us, I know I sure as heck do, a lot of us are going to agree with what he says. Now, by the way, on Thursday, somebody really interesting agrees with what he says, but I'm going to hold that for Thursday. Actually, if you look ahead, you can see who it is. Hey, Ryan, fantastic. Great to have you. Okay, now, I mentioned earlier on I'm going to try new tech, untested before, which is a no-no. Don't do what I'm doing. I'm going to do something called Poll Everywhere, okay? Later on, at the end of this lecture, or toward the end of the lecture, I'm going to poll you guys. And you can respond to the poll in a couple of ways. You can either go online. Here, let's use this one. Go online to pollev.com/LawnShiftBot302. I'm really sorry. I put in my name as like my domain, and my name sucks. All right? So, especially for something you have to type in, I mean. Or you can text your reply to this, and, you know, this number, text this to this number, and you can join. Now, by the way, I will do the same thing. I have my phone right here, and I'm going to go along the process with you so that I can experience it with you, and we'll kind of see how it works. But just so you know, if you would do me a favor, have your phone available and ready to text, or have a window open to poll.ev.com/whatever this is. We'll bring it up again in a moment. We'll go ahead and do the poll at the end, okay? Okay, what do you want? Let's see. So Timothy, you're asking what to what? Okay, very good. Thank you, Timothy. I'm just rambling, right? You're going to text, and let's pull up my, where are my little highlighters? You're going to text this number, okay? That's the number you're going to text to, and you're going to text this to that number. Thank you, Timothy. It is confusing. And to be perfectly honest, guys, the first time I was a student like you using this, I was in a seminar, it confused the heck out of me. However, I have found, and you guys have found as well, that Kahoot has a long delay once we start to do a lot of questions. So I'm trying to find an alternative technology to Kahoot. So that's what this is about. So yeah, text that number, text this to that number. Okay, and then the poll will start again, and we'll start in a moment, and we'll go over that again. But Timothy, thank you for that clarifying question. As a matter of fact, okay, clarifying questions, right, totally count, man. Because if I just start rambling and doing crap, that's not helpful, right? Not until the end of class, though, right? Yeah, Hayden. So it'll be after we talk Karl Marx that I'm going to ask you, do these ideas resonate with you? So don't worry, we'll come back to it. I'm just giving you a heads up, Hayden, that I'd like it if you had a cell phone or another window to pollev.com open. Okay? All right, so let's jump into it. All right, we're going to now start talking alienated labor with Karl Marx. Now, we're going to jump right into some of our, and don't worry, all of everything you're about to do is going to totally count in this world right here, okay? So this is what I want to do, and I'm going to kind of bring myself down so it's a little easier to see, and I'll move things around so we can see it more when the time comes. Here are the 5 principles of capitalism. Great, Hayden, fantastic. Profit motive, private wealth, capital, free markets, laissez-faire, invisible hand. You get them all. What I want us to do is list out some really awesome pros about these things, as well as some, oh, that kind of sucks things about these things. In other words, I don't want us to just accept capitalism because the powers that be really want us to. I want us to look at the pros and cons of them. So this is what I'm going to do. You can choose any one of these you want. And you can choose whether it's happy, it's a great thing, or there's a problem with it. You can choose any one you want. I'm going to go over to another slide, and I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to kind of formulate in your mind some pros and cons on these, okay? And then as we go through them, I'll ask you to put your whatever response, because yours might be, well, I want to focus on laissez-faire, or I want to focus on free market. Well, we're going to start at profit motive, so you'll need to wait a moment before you put in your response. But have your responses ready so we can explore these, okay? So just a reminder of what we're doing, because as Timothy points out, I tend to ramble. You are going to come up with either a why this is really good, why this is problematic for any one of these principles of capitalism. You're going to write it down. And then when we go through these, you'll put your responses in there to contribute to the conversation. Now I'm going to go for about 2 minutes to a puppy cam so that you can watch puppies while you think about your responses. Okay, let's give this a whirl. Okay, fantastic. We are back. And so let's go ahead and explore some of these. By the way, those are now 2 puppies that are part of this home. I'll tell you a story later on when we're not lecturing and so forth. So yeah, oh, Jeremy couldn't get it to work. Okay, well, we're not doing the poll just yet. So that's probably why we couldn't get it to work. So let's just hold on that. So profit motive, all right? Let's see. Okay, guys, so I'm sorry, we're not doing the poll yet. Jaime, you guys are totally on it. Jeremy, Jaime, you guys are so on it that I almost pulled it looks like I pulled the trigger too soon. We're not doing the poll yet. Don't worry, I'll remind you when we get there. I'm just, it's okay, Ryan. It's totally okay. Okay, let's look at the profit motive. What are some really awesome things about the profit motive? Or what are some things that are problematic when it comes to the profit motive? So let me share with you some of my thoughts, and I'd love to see your thoughts as well. So one thing that's great about the profit motive, I feel, is that it kind of has this feel of constant progression and improvement from the current state. Remember, the profit motive says it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never good enough. It's never done. You always want more. And I'm kind of a fan of that idea because it pushes me forward. The fact that we're trying new tech today, I'm doing a puppy cam and I'm doing a poll that I apparently confused this all with, but that's okay. That's part of the profit motive, folks. That's me trying to push and trying to find new ways to engage students and make these lectures interesting. And if a puppy doesn't make a lecture interesting, I don't know what does. Okay, so I like this, right? And so Timothy, you're saying, and I'm going to keep track of the comments so that we can get our gamification up there. Aaron says profit motive, innovation, quality. Yeah, totally. Timothy makes business improve product, services, remain competitive. Absolutely, yes. A con, though, cutthroat. Okay, Aaron, thank you. Because now, if we come over and look at cons, here's one idea. And by the way, Aaron, I agree. I can't put everything in these. I just put ones that come to mind for me, right? But let's look at the cons. I feel that one of the cons is that, and Hayden, you totally got it, right? Hayden's with me there. I put constant dissatisfaction with the current state. And the thing is, guys, we exist in the current state. Right now, you sitting wherever you are, you're not sitting in the past, you're not sitting in the future, you are sitting in the current state. And the profit motive tells you to be dissatisfied with the current state. Ergo, you live and exist in a constant state of dissatisfaction. Well, now that's really great for pushing you forward and making you do things and so forth. But what a dismal thought. We live in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction with our current state. Oh gosh, right? You guys are hitting this. Possible feelings of inadequacy, as Hayden said. Always need more. Yeah, it's exhausting, dude. Timothy Kahn, it makes it hard business, don't give back to the community. Yeah, because profit is always driving them. Plus is that it helps me be more motivated. Yes, Ryan, I'm like a motivation addict, right? Progression and productivity and motivation. Heck, my PhD dissertation was in motivation because I'm really into that. And yes, you're absolutely right. In terms of the profit motive motivating us, right? Do better things for others, like, soon to be fiance / wife. Yeah, absolutely. I want to constantly be uber awesome for my spouse so that I earn their affections, it's not something you earn. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you should never be content with the current state. If you get lazy, then that's where your relationship starts to fall apart. Okay, very good. Excellent. Jeremy, yes, motivates innovation. Totally agree. Okay, so let's go on then to private wealth and capital. So I'll share with you a plus that I have about private wealth and capital, and we'll see what you guys have, as well as the minuses. So a plus I have is that it, investment of wealth begets, benefits the society as a whole in the form of jobs, taxes, access to capital, things like that. So when I invest my wealth into society, society will take that and use it to its ultimate benefit. And that's fantastic. I also generate tax revenue. I'm a fan of what good taxes can be, how good taxes can be applied to good projects. Okay. Now, yeah, I don't love taxes any more than the next person, but I love the idea. I love the idea of me contributing to the greater whole and it being allocated sagaciously, used wisely. We know that's not the case, but I like the idea. Okay. Um, let's see, we have Aaron says, private wealth, enjoy the fruits of your labor. Yes, yes, right? You worked hard. You should have the right to enjoy the benefits of that. I'm totally with you. And so is Jeremy. Jeremy's on board. I love it. Allows individuals to move between classes, says Timothy. Yes, it really actually does. Now, it's still difficult. It's still tough. But in America, that's one of the virtues that I like to feel that we try to embrace is that you can move, you can have social mobility. I like that a lot. Ryan, private wealth creates a financial safety net. Nice. A negative creates an extremely poor homeless class. Yes, and Jason is on board with Aaron. Let's look at the cons. Investment of wealth creates disproportionate wealth, power, and privilege for a very small minority of the labor and of the majority. Okay, the labor of the majority. Here's the idea: wealth begets wealth. So the more wealth I have, the more wealth I can create, and that is just a cycle, right? In the same way, if you don't have wealth to invest, if you don't have wealth to rely upon, it's really hard to get wealth. You cannot work your way to wealth very easily at all. You need wealth in order to beget that wealth. And so it does create classes. It absolutely creates classes. I don't think anybody can really look at the statistics and not recognize. I mean, we even talk about lower class, middle class, upper class. Well, now it's really, this teeny tiny proportion, the 2%ers that control 60% of the nation's wealth, and then the middle class smaller. So you see this, private capital does create classes. Okay, so some other comments here. Look up Burgess Owens, rags to riches, NFL. Yeah. Jeremy, you're right. So Burgess Owens, whether you support his politics or not, we're not talking about that. What we are talking about is you can be mobile through hard work, access to wealth, skill and talent help. Skill and talent. So yes, NFL Hall of Famer, I don't know many of us online who can say, oh, well, I'll go ahead and jump onto that train. So opportunity, skill, talent scouts, coaches who believe in him, all these sort of things. Yeah, social mobility, I believe in it. Okay. Wealth can be passed on through the family. We're actually going to talk about that, Timothy, because it can be passed on, but we also tax you when we pass it on. We'll talk about why. Jeremy, debt can also be passed on to your family. Yeah, right. And it gets tricky there. It really does. We actually, a lot of people refer to it as the death tax. When you die, you can't pass on your entire fortune tax-free to your family. A big portion of it is taxed. I do not know the current percentage of the death tax. If somebody wants to, on the side, Google what is the current percentage of the death tax in the United States, I'd be really curious. But the idea is the government doesn't want to create basically these families of perpetual wealth. They want to kind of make sure that everybody's earning their way up and not just riding on generational coattails. Not that it always works, right? Okay, so yeah, the bankruptcies. Don't worry, guys. We don't want to get into a battle here. By the way, I'm a believer in bankruptcy, but there's many corporations and many individuals who abuse it. Bankruptcies hold a place in our current economic system. We'll talk more about that later, but yeah, we don't want to get into the politics here. The point is private capital has a lot of pros and has a lot of cons. And yes, one of the cons is that it creates classes. You might have social mobility going up, but then once you're at the top there, you're now part of the new class. Okay, so, all right, let's go on to free market. Let's go on to free market. What are some awesome aspects of the free market versus some of the not so awesome aspects, right? Oh, hey, Timothy, let's check this out. Top estate tax. Thank you. It is called the estate tax, not the death tax. Death tax is kind of just the colloquial. 40%, right? I thought it was like 37%, so I was pretty close. The average pay is actually 17%. That is fascinating. Yeah, remember, and this is what we talked about on our day off, right? With the American form of capitalism. We don't love the idea of families perpetually growing in wealth. We want to redistribute that wealth so that everybody has access to capital. Okay, let's keep going. Free market. Well, a real awesome pro of the free market is encourages innovation, which delivers new features, better quality, lower prices. We love the free market, right? However, there are cons to the free market. I'd love to see your ideas here. Mine is creates contrived needs to keep people purchasing, prices some people out of the market for basic needs. Okay, so free market says you can make whatever you want and so forth, but there was a time where you couldn't get masks or you couldn't get hand sanitizer, and people were, and the prices for these things skyrocketed, and people were priced out of the market. Also creates contrived needs. We are going to talk a ton about that going forward. Because, yeah, if you look around your room right now, I am willing to bet that 60% of what you see, you don't need. Or you certainly don't need that brand or that kind or that many, right? In this office, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't need most of this stuff, right? But I want it, and I think I need it, so I get it. So let's take a look at this. Let's see. What basic need is out there out of the reach of the general public? Well, it depends, Jeremy, on like what the market is doing. So yes, there are times that hand sanitizer and masks were out of the reach of the general public, and people were buying them up and so on and so forth. I'll give you another example. This one is not a need, right? But I had a friend who signed up to, and I shared this one with you. He signed up as a member of the Capitol Theater. There we go. The Capitol Theater where all the Broadway shows comes up. And he and a bunch of other friends all became members of the Capitol Theater, so that when the big shows came to town, as a member, you were allowed to buy up 20 tickets, right? So he and his friends would go in and just wipe out all the tickets and then scalp them. That's totally free market. That's 100% free market. But what it does is it basically says a ticket that to the general public was $40 is now $200. So while this is not a need, it definitely priced people like me out of the market. There was no way I was going to do that. Okay. Let's see. Aaron says a calm example, the idea that a diamond engagement ring is the way. Yeah, yeah, really interesting, right? That we've created these needs that if you're going to get married, you must buy a diamond. Why? What do you mean, why? You have to. Otherwise, you don't love the person. Yeah, right. What the heck? Contrived need. Ryan, free market gives too many choices, makes it hard to decide. Hey guys, Ryan's on to something here. There is this sort of spoiled for choice, and we actually become less satisfied with our choice when we have lots of options than if we have few options. Very good. Timothy, contrived needs, kind of like when the government subsidized farmers to destroy. Yeah, but on the other hand, I like having a consistent price in these things, so give and take, but totally there. Aaron is on board with you. Aaron, basic need, access to internet for children homeschooling during the pandemic. That's a great example. You know, you and I are all enjoying this internet and so forth, and it's very, very helpful for us. But not everybody has an iPad. Not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has connectivity. And in a world of a pandemic, this is a basic need. All of a sudden, it became a basic need. So I'm on board with you. Great example, Aaron. A lot of real, by the way, when we go back to rack up all the real world and comments and so forth, yeah, we're breaking records. Okay, let's keep going. Laissez-faire enables a natural, harmonious and self-regulating system to work effectively. That's no spike. Let's see. Should reopen. My kids are back in school. You know, different spikes in different areas. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how that's working out. We're going to be studying this crap, you know, at least, you know, epidemiologists for decades. But, and I'm going to make myself disappear here for a moment so that we can see everything, which means I want to make sure I turned off the video feed so that we could see this, but you can still hear me, right? I'm hoping you can still hear me when I turn off the video. I better get back up there. Wow. Okay. Okay. That's really good to know. Thank you, guys. Okay. Can't hear you when you turn off the video. Thank you. I can fix that later on. I can fix that later on. Let me go ahead and say what I was saying here with laissez-faire and natural system and so forth. Sometimes as people, the things that make us people, the things that make us stand out from the animal kingdom, even though we're part of the animal kingdom, is we can practice empathy. We understand mortality. We can practice emotional intelligence. And we are very willing to do things that are not in our self-interest, but are in the interest of the community. So take, for example, Jeremy, you've spent the majority of your career in the military. I suspect there are many stories told in the military of acts of heroism, of people putting themselves in harm's way to look after the people, to look after the unit, to look after the mission. In a laissez-faire system where it's all about ourselves, we wouldn't do that, right? But we are not just stupid beasts. We understand mortality, we understand mission, we understand objective, we understand relationship and the needs of the many, right? And so we should have an economic system that recognizes these. Okay, for the invisible hand, let's talk invisible hand. My plus is it allows value to flow freely where it can create further value. So on and so forth, regardless of the intent of it being created. Jeremy, for the invisible hand, my marketing class went over how, let's see, promoting one product creates a need for multiple products. Yes. And, you know, it just builds upon itself, right? Absolutely. That is so the case. On the other hand, and I'll read this one to you because I need to set up my system to where the microphone doesn't disappear when I turn off the video. Not all value created is rewarded equally, either monetarily or in terms of influence. So, for example, a NFL star, let's go back to an NFL star, right? An NFL star creates a ton of value in the system because, all right, you sell tickets, you sell advertising, you sell gear, you sell paraphernalia, you sell all kinds of stuff, and then all the sports shows and all the bars. The amount of wealth through the invisible hand that an NFL star creates is astronomical. Ergo, we pay them a lot. And this is not a gripe as a teacher. I'm compensated fairly for what I do. On the other hand, a teacher is actually creating much more wealth in terms of value to society, building future leaders, building future moral and ethical leaders, and, you know, helping people up and so on and so forth. But they do not create as much immediate value to the system, so they're not rewarded as much. That's what the invisible hand does, okay? Invisible hand is absolutely amazing and it automatically creates innovation. I totally agree. And I am an example of the invisible hand. So true. Okay, very good, everyone. And I apologize for the technical snafu. I'll fix that for future lectures. I know what went wrong. Okay, you guys did very well. You demonstrated, and let's just say it, man. So we've got, I'm going to take this up to 10. I'm going to take contributors. It's the English, and it's contributors. Contributors. We referenced quite a few past lectures, and I saw many real world examples. I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and say 10. So, yeah. Holy smoke. You guys killed it. Just absolutely killed it. Okay. So, the number 90910. Yeah, 90810. That's even better. 90810. Okay. Very good. All right, so what did we do with all of this? Well, what we did was we reminded ourselves of what capitalism is. We reminded ourselves why it's awesome. And we also reminded ourselves why it's not so awesome. Okay, so enter Karl Marx. Karl Marx, it's not a history lesson on Marx, so I'm not going to worry about that. These are some videos that I really like about what we're going to talk about. So I am going to provide these videos to you in description below. But one of Karl Marx's gripes was what he called alienated labor, alienation of labor. And he says, listen, capitalism is great if you have capital. That's why it's called capitalism, people. Think about it. We're not calling it laborism. We're not calling it workism. We're calling it capitalism. If you own capital or have access to capital, capitalism is fantastic. But early on, and in many ways today, if you don't have capital, you are not winning. Okay? So we're going to talk about here his gripes, this concept of alienated labor. He has four main gripes that we're going to explore here, okay? And the little poll that we're going to do at the end of these four gripes, the poll is, to what degree do you feel these things in your career? So put that optic on right now. Train your ears and think, to what degree do you feel this in your career? All right? So let's take a baker, for example. A baker is really close to their product, right? They're kneading the bread, they're adding the flour, they're tasting, they're adding the salt, just the right amount of salt. They're letting it prove in the oven, letting it rise in the oven to just the right level. They know how long to, baking is a real skill. Watch the Great British Baking Show. I'm a big fan, right? Baking is a super, important and serious skill. And so they're very close to their product. Whereas somebody who's just working in a factory is just pushing a button. They're just pushing a button. They're not close to the product. They don't see themselves in it. They don't hold up a loaf of bread and say, this is and bread really, especially yeast, it's a living organism. Dough is a living organism. They don't feel that sort of connectedness as an artisan bread baker would be. They just work in a factory, man. They watch the dials, they turn them, and they add oil where they need to, and they crank gears. It's separate, right? So this is what Marx means by they're alienated from the product, okay? They don't see themselves in the product. A baker makes all the profit. Someone pushing a button just makes profit for the factory owner. So not only does the baker see themselves in this bread, this invisible bread here, but they get the profit. They get to enjoy the fruits of their labor, as Aaron said earlier. However, if you're working in a factory, no, you get an hourly wage, but it's the factory owner who enjoys the fruits of your labor. Okay? Now, another thing that Marx was on about was alienation from one's own labor. Let me show you what I mean. A baker is involved in every step of the process, practicing their craft. Whereas the worker, the factory worker, does just one small repetitive task over and over and over. Imagine a great big assembly line where everybody's just turn, crank, push, turn, crank, push. You're just doing that over and over and over. Whereas a baker, an artisan, is, hang on to Wilco, man. We're going to be talking Wilco in about 3 weeks. Hold on to that one. Okay? Yeah, you're gonna build that one up. Well, That's not a reference to past. You referenced the future lecture. Hold on to it. Okay. So it's hard to feel like you're close to the labor when you don't really see your labor translate into bread. I know how kneading translates into bread. I don't see how turning a dial and taking notes on a clipboard translates into bread. So my labor is not in the bread. Okay? They're just selling their, mechanical labor for wages. The fact that I can do this, right? Pull levers. One of the things that, I have a son who is struggling to go to college, right? I have kids on every level, right? And he says, I want a better paying job. And I say, okay, well, what do you have to sell besides your labor? Right now, the only thing, now he's young, right? He's young. He'll figure it out, right? But right now, all he has to sell is the fact that he has mechanical labor. He can pull things. He can push things. He can turn dials. That's all he has to sell. And if that's all you have to sell, that ain't much. And so it certainly doesn't translate into a craft. Okay. And in many cases, laborers cannot actually afford that which they are making. So if you're in a great big, now this is back in the day, a lot of this has changed, and we'll talk about how it's changed throughout these lectures. But back in the day, these people would be working in great big factories, making products that would be shipped overseas to be sold for prices that they could never afford. And so they were very separated from the product that way and from their actual labor. We also have alienation from others, okay? So since workers are not connected to the product in a meaningful way and they're not connected with one another, that finds them, I have a typo there, that gives them meaningful purpose to the community. So let me explain. When you're a baker in a small town or whatever, you're kind of a big deal. Everybody knows who the baker is. Everybody knows who the butcher is. Everybody knows who these providers who use a skilled labor to provide a awesome product. That's kind of a role in the community. So, if you can say, I'm a teacher, I'm a baker, I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, I'm a butcher, right? That gives you a place in the community. But if you say, I'm a factory worker, what place do you have? What hierarchy is there? How can you relate with others, right? When you're just one of a million cogs, I'm a factory worker, then the place that you used to hold in that community kind of evaporates. That's what he's talking about with alienation of others. There's a difference between I run a kneading machine and I'm a baker. Okay? This put workers at odds with one another as they are now competing for that factory work. Back when you were bakers and so forth, sure, there were other bakers and you'd compete with them, but you were also probably close friends, right? But now you're competing for those factory jobs. So your place in the community is almost adversarial. Aaron said, when I first moved to Germany, that was a question that my neighbors asked before they socially accepted me into the community. What do you bring to the neighborhood? Yes, that is a tremendous example. Tremendous example. Germans still really buy into this. Okay, number 4, alienation from oneself. So we have alienation from the product, alienation from the work, alienation from others, and now alienation from oneself. According to Marx, labor fulfills our species' essence. I really like that term because what he's saying is human beings, we want to create and express ourselves in our accomplishments. But capitalism robs us of this, robs us of what makes us human. If my species' essence is to create and explore and express myself in my work and my labor and my place in the community, capitalism takes all of that away and just says, get in that factory and run the machine. That's it. Just sit on the assembly line and do your 7 repetitive tasks over and over and over and over. And so, where's my species' essence? They're not asking me to innovate. They're not asking me to collaborate. They're not asking me to find new ways. They're not asking me to express myself in my labor. You know, I mean, check this out, guys. I am totally expressing myself in my labor here, and I get a lot of reward out of that. Well, these poor sods aren't, okay? They are denied the opportunity to create, innovate, critically analyze, problem solve, and affect an outcome, okay? So, this is what we now want to do, all right? And I think I'll come down here. No, I'll come down here. This is where we're going to try our, let me make sure that I have this right. We are now going to try, okay, yeah, we're going to try this survey thing. And I'm going to do it along with you. So the question I have for you, this poll, and this is all anonymous. You won't see names. How much have you felt this in your career? Alienation from the product, alienation from your labor, from others, or from yourself, right? How much have you felt this in your career? So what we're going to do is we're either going to go to pollev.com/Lohnschiffbauer without the ER 302, or we're going to text this number. I'm going to text the number and see how that works. So bear with me as I set up a text. I'm setting this up. I'm going to send it to 37607. Okay. And then the message I'm going to send is LONSCHIFFBAU 302. And I'm going to send that and see what happens. Send. Once joined, then A, B, C, D, or E. So let me make sure I have it open. Oh, it's coming through. Okay. So once in, I'm going to go with, C. Okay. It is coming through. And it's constantly changing. How interesting. I did allow it to change if people wanted to change their response and so forth. So, and it's still changing. How fascinating. Now, the idea is that this should show up on this graph here without me having to have that window up. But it looked like I needed to have, as a matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll open the window, but move it to another monitor so it doesn't show up there. So do me a favor. Let me know if you guys are kind of, if anybody has changed their response so that kind of explains why things are doing what they're doing there, because I'm just kind of interested. And let me know if anybody just found that it didn't work at all. While I do this, let's take a look at this. So a lot of you, 29% of you, say, I haven't felt any of this. That is awesome. All right. That means you've always had careers and jobs where you have felt very close to the product, that you could see yourself in the product, that you felt that you could innovate and create in that job, and that you had the freedom to really express yourself in your work. It also means that you really felt that you belonged to a community because of the work that you did, and that you always felt a strong sense of belonging to that work. That's awesome. 25% of you are there. That's extraordinary to me, because I've worked some pretty crap jobs in my life, and I can't say that I've always felt that, but I'm happy for you. Some of you said a little bit. Me, I put C. I put a fair amount. Now, not anymore. As I've been able to build my career and so forth, I've been okay. But I've worked some jobs early in my career when I didn't have a college degree, or when I was going to college, where I was just there to punch the clock, baby. I was just punching the clock, because I did not see myself in the labor. I did not self-actualize through this. It wasn't my, calling and election to be doing this work. It's just, man, you give me a paycheck, I'll punch the clock. So that's why I put a fair amount. In my life today, no, I'm a little bit here and there, but not much. And then we had a couple folks who were in D a great deal, and E most of the time. Personally, my feeling is, if you are in C, D, and E, then it makes sense to me why you're in college. If you're in not at all, 25%, I don't know why you're in college. Now, this is just me talking, and I'm not saying drop, but if you have always been self-actualized in your career, why change? Okay? There's a lot of reasons why you might, so don't worry. It's just, these are the things to think about. So I got some comments here. So Aaron, let's see, Ryan, true for me, I'm multifaceted handyman, and most of my jobs are reward. Awesome. Okay, Ryan brings up an awesome point. If you're a multifaceted handyman and you're kind of your own employer, if you will, your own boss, and you're just picking up jobs here and there, and you can pick those jobs and you can problem solve and critically think and see yourself in the work, then Ryan's dead on right. I would put A for that, right? Jeremy, luckily, healthcare, even in the military, you get to see your efforts. Really good point. So you are helping me to see why, yeah, A would make some sense. Yeah, Ryan's on board with you there. Yeah, time to make more money with those efforts, totally. Aaron, I worked as a commercial craftsman in Alaska. Oh, this is cool. For 2 winters when I graduated high school. I learned that I don't want to keep doing that for a career. Oh, yeah, totally, right. And I worked for FedEx for a good long while. Crab fisherman. Man, you got to tell us some stories, baby. I'm having this vision of Deadliest Catch in my mind. I worked for FedEx. Fantastic job, fantastic career. Gave me health benefits, got me through college. I am a big fan, but I didn't always feel that I was expressing myself and my product. I stacked boxes. Now, sometimes I stacked some mean boxes. So that allowed me to kind of problem solve a bit. But yeah. And it sucked. It looks like it sucks, Aaron. I will tell you, that looks like it sucks. Okay. So that sort of worked. It looks like that sort of worked, and I don't see that there was too much of lag, and I think I got lots of responses. So tremendous. I'm going to keep experimenting with this product. It looks like it worked for all of you. Nobody came on and said it's not working. Maybe it didn't, but it seemed to do all right. I'm going to keep using this product. see if I can make it work better, which I'm sure I can. That, and I pushed the wrong button. There we go. Let's come. Okay, we're going to come back over here. We're going to come here. And we're going to read I'm going to read a quote from Karl Marx. Catch a man a fish and you can sell it to him. Teach a man to fish and you can ruin a wonderful business opportunity. Now, you got to understand with Karl Marx, this is all tongue-in-cheek, man. He's saying, listen, the noble thing to do is to teach a man to fish. The capitalist thing to do is to retain that knowledge, become the best fisherman you can, and sell fish. It's not about helping people, provide for themselves. It's about making them dependent on you because you know how to fish and they don't. Interesting. Okay. And boom, there you go. We are all set. Now, a couple things. What I want to do now is, and for those of you just joining for the lecture for fun, the lecture's done. I want to do a couple things. First, I want to show you how to set up for the next reading, okay? And I want to share with you, if you're interested, the survey results from the survey that we did last week on how well you feel that, this stuff is working and so forth. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and we will kill this off. Discard. Go ahead and bring that down. Let's first bring up we'll bring up a new window here. Come here. Go ahead and get into Canvas. Ryan, I thought about that work. Much the same kind of experience. Yeah, on the oil rigs. Yeah, I bet it does. That looks like hard work, man. That looks like just really awful hard work. Okay, let's pull this up. We're getting there. We're getting there. And here's our class. Let's go to our who's them and what's it's, our modules. And we're going to come down to this one right here. Okay, on labor and Mike Lefebvre. Okay, here's what we're going to do, folks. On Labor by Adam Smith. Okay, please appreciate what I'm about to say. This is really good. Don't worry about it. I'm going to hook you up on this one. Okay, in our next lecture on Thursday, I will hook you up on this one. Because I really want you to read Mike Lefebvre's Steelworker. This is one of the greatest readings ever. And I really want you to read it. And I want you to think about Karl Marx, everything we just talked about here, and what we're going to bring up with Adam Smith, because Mike Lefebvre's Steelworker is a great real-world, current, living example of what Karl Marx talked about today and what Adam Smith will talk about on Thursday. So please, 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 I'm going to give you a pass on labor because I will help you there. But that's because I want you to get really into Mike Lefebvre. This thing is awesome. Now, what you'll find about this one, this guy is awesome. If you worked on a crab boat or on an oil rig, Mike Lefebvre is going to be your new spirit animal. This guy is a swearing, cantankerous, incredibly insightful philosopher. This guy is one of the smartest people I have ever had the privilege of reading. So, it's just an interview between a guy named Studs Terkel and Mike Lefebvre. So you go through this interview and see what Mike has to say. Trust me, you are going to like this reading. Okay, so I'd really like to invite you to get into that one because I'm going to get all geeky about it. All right. So that sets you up for next week. Now, if you're curious, I would like to share with you um, the results of the survey that we had. Remember, I'm trying to gauge how all this technology that I'm bringing to bear is working for you. I want to create an online broadcast experience that works for you. I want to bring the right technologies, the right animation, the right fun stuff to make this compelling. So, as you can see from today, I'm always adding new things, including a puppy cam, right? I mean, come on. And polls. But this was so I could survey what we had this far. So, what I got here, so that you know, is that according to the data, only 7% of you disagree that based on the. Oh, hang on. This is like. Hang on. I want to go to the beginning. Okay, here we go. 40% of you are just as likely to comment on a live stream as in a face to face lecture. 40% are more likely to comment, as you have been, than in a face to face lecture. That's interesting. Here's my theory. Oh, Ryan, by the way, 90K. Almost lost an arm. Oh my gosh. So here was my theory. I feel like a lot of folks watch streaming, they interact online and so forth. I know a lot of students are not comfortable speaking up in class, but perhaps are comfortable making a comment. It looks to me like 40% of you are more likely to comment in a live stream than in a face-to-face lecture, but 40% are just as likely, right? There are 20% who are less likely to comment than if you were in a face-to-face lecture. Totally fine. I get it. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. 93% of students are more likely to comment to see the gamification points increase. Okay, so the gamification points, that's this stuff right here. Okay? These are things that I kind of created to sort of incentivize. I don't like that word. It's not a real word, but you've heard it a billion times. To motivate people to speak up, because my theory was, hey, if they can see that comments and so forth start to, grow and get points and so on, that it would be, help people, make those comments. Well, apparently 93% of you agree. 93% are either somewhat more or far more likely to comment. I like that. So I'm going to keep doing it. 40% of students feel the live streams are just as effective as a face-to-face lecture. 47% feel they are more effective. That really surprised me. It really surprised me that you felt that this was more effective than a face-to-face, because when I attend onlines and so forth, I don't feel they're as effective as a face-to-face, but I'm an old man. Maybe it's just because I want to be in front of somebody, right? Maybe for some audience, apparently 47% felt this was more effective. But I also want to call out, 13% said this is not as effective. I hear you, right? So I want to keep working to try to, narrow that gap. Okay, only 7% of you said that you don't really feel comfortable asking a question. Okay, and so I get that, but it means that you're either about the same or willing to ask a question. That's one of the things that I think I struggle with in these, is that I think I know how to get comments, because you guys, by the way, you're like the best commenters ever, right? And so it's not that hard. But to get questions from you, I've struggled with that a little bit. So I'm looking for new ways to do that, right? Timothy says, I felt that way about your online lectures. Other online classes, not so much. It's in terms of effectiveness. I appreciate that. I'm trying. I don't want, I want to get better. I want to be good at this. So that's why these surveys really help me. So Aaron says, presentation, interactive way of streaming. Yeah, because it's different, right? Hey, Gabriella is now Victor. I love it. Fantastic. Welcome. Okay, so let's keep going. Last one. 7% of you disagreed that based on this live stream experience, you would do such another class. Okay, that means that most of you are like, yeah, I'd do another class like this. 7% of you, which is probably a couple, have, here it is, have probably said, no, if I knew the class was going to be a live stream like this, I wouldn't do it again. I get that. I really get it, folks. I'm not looking for praise and, oh, you're so wonderful. I'm looking for where should I focus my efforts to make these even better? Because as I've demonstrated today, I'm trying to bring new technologies, new tools, new puppies to the arena. Okay? Yeah, we're just not having a 10 a.m. class. We are, Gabriella, oh gosh, yeah, we are having a 10 a.m. class. You're just in the earlier class. I have a 8:30 to 9:50 class. That's where you came in. Okay, now this is making sense. Don't worry, we'll do our 10 a.m. class here in a moment. So, guys, that is everything. All of you in my Business 1050 class, don't worry, we'll start the other one soon. Thank you very much. Thank you for completing the survey. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction when it comes to making these even better. Thank you for experimenting in the technology. And thank you for being the strong contributors that you are. Okay? Yeah, you can't make everyone happy, but you know what? Profit motive. I can always try, right? I know I can't, but I can always push. All right? All right, everyone. Next class to start out, as Victor says. So we'll talk to you all later. Have a fantastic day. Yeah, profit motive. So true.